We hear and talk about this all the time. Prices going up while wages lag behind, and housing costs that are out of reach.
Rent just keeps going up. It's just more difficult. A one bedroom is $1,200. And if you look at what somebody on a minimum wage is making, it's just tough.
But there is a new effort underway to change the status quo. Join the conversation on low wages and the lack of affordability in Hawaii. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of What's It Going to Take on Insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff. More and more these days, Hawaii residents express fears that our middle class is feeling squeezed. The very people who were once the backbone of the community, who believed that if they worked hard and saved their money, they could create a better future for their children, now believe that future is most likely on the mainland. It's fair to say we're in a crisis. Fewer jobs offer a living wage, homes are not affordable, and many of those being built now are priced for the luxury market. Data gathered by the Hawaii Community Foundation's Change Framework paint a clear picture that something needs to be done. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email, call, or tweet your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. Now to our guests. Erin Kano Uehara is owner and president of Chocolea, a local gourmet chocolate company in Manoa Valley. She's born and raised in Mililani, is married with 2 young children, and loves dancing, hip-hop, jazz, and contemporary styles. Sarah Tochiki is the band director at Chiefess Kamakahelei Middle School in Līhuʻe, Kauaʻi. And she's nodding because I said it right. And the director of the Kauaʻi Community College Instrumental Music Program. She earned a Master of Music Education at Boston University and was born and raised on Oʻahu. Sumner LaCroix is a professor emeritus in the Department of Economics at the University of Hawaii Manoa and a research fellow with the University of Hawaii Economic Research Organization. And Sean Kamalani Raposa, an Oʻahu native who grew up in Kailua and Mo'iliili. He's a graduate of Maryknoll School and currently works in a warehouse. He has a 13-year-old daughter, loves to sing and play music, and describes himself as a people person. Let me start off with Erin. You've got 2 young kids. When you see all this stuff we're talking about, do you get depressed? How do you, when you look at the future of those 2 kids, what do you think about?
You know, actually, it's the flip. When I look at my 2 kids, I think like this is the hope for the future, actually. We're in a crisis right now, and we're working through making that better for them. So, and they're probably gonna come up with better ideas than we can come up with by the time they're our age. So,
you're also a small business owner in this economy. How is it going?
It is going great, and it is also going great because we have just been blessed, and we are working really hard because it is not just great because it's given to you great. So you have to work really hard. Yeah.
So can you, with this small business, are you able to afford the lifestyle you were hoping for?
I think what I was hoping for is kind of more the work that I want to do in this world and the kind of family I want to raise. So I'm doing that based on what I'm able to do with the finances, with the business that I have. If I measure it in terms of the house I want to live in or the luxuries I would like to do, then no, I wouldn't say that necessarily I might be doing what I would hope to, but I am happy in doing what is most important to me in life right now.
Well, congratulations, that's cool.
Thank you.
Kamalani, so yourself, a warehouse, we hear warehouse and we don't think about very high wages. I mean, how are you doing, and how much do you make, and how does that work into your lifestyle? How do you live?
I'm very blessed. The opportunities that I've had, like you said, I work at a warehouse. It's not the most pay that you can make, but I find the means to get by. There's been a few days where, I had to, I couldn't eat because I had to pay my bills. And, just trying to find the fine balance of I guess being successful at life it's very intimidating. It's very hard, but like I said, I'm very blessed.
You also have your outlets, right?
Yes.
Which is?
I love to sing. I love to play music. I'm an entertainer and a people person. I love engaging people and just pouring into people.
Now, the same question I asked Erin. You've got a 13-year-old daughter. Are you concerned about her future and her ability to stay here?
Yes. Trying to find affordable living here it's getting harder and harder each and every year. You know, the cost of living goes up every year, and the amount of pay that we receive, it just doesn't reflect. You know,
there's no connection between what people make and what it costs to live, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And how does your have your rent? You've been renting, right? So
Yes.
how's that? How's finding a rental in Honolulu?
Oh, you know, I live with my stepbrother and his wife and his daughter, and if I didn't have that opportunity, I don't know where I would be living right now.
Wow.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, living with family. It's a story of this
Yes.
town, right?
Yes.
Sarah Tochiki, let me ask you, what's your experience been? You went away for school and then came back. What was that? Was that a hard decision to make to come back?
I love
Given the-
Hawaii,
okay.
and I was born and raised here, and I wanted to become a band director and come back here and give back to our community and teach kids and make them into musicians that really love music and become great people that are then going to come back to our community, and it should be a cyclical thing. But I can say when I first got the job on Kauaʻi, I had no place to live, and so when I arrived on the island, the only place that I could find, because there's such a low inventory of places to live, was a converted garage that was made into a studio apartment that was $1,200 a month, which was more than one of my paychecks. So you go to college, they tell you you're gonna get a great job, you're gonna graduate, you're gonna find the great job, you're gonna have this great life, and then it was like, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pay for everything that I need to with the amount that I'm making as a brand new teacher.
Does it affect your decisions going into the future? That you look at the teacher's salary, you look at the housing situation. I mean, might you be tempted to leave?
Well, we have, you know, the recent housing and urban development study that says, what, $67,000 is low income in our state, and we have half of our teachers in the state of Hawaii are technically low income that make less than that. That's kind of difficult. And I can tell you a personal story. My sister is also a teacher. She lives in the state of Washington, and she makes $1,000 more a month than I do, take-home pay.
Is that in the Seattle area? Or
in the
what part?
Seattle area.
Okay.
And she has only a third the experience that I do. And I'm not gonna lie, it's tempting to go, okay, maybe I'll go live in Seattle for a little bit, go live with my sister. I can pay off a bunch of my mortgage. I can have this great life and enjoy living on the mainland, and then maybe I'll be ready to come back to Hawaii when I can actually afford it. But I love my community, and I love Kauaʻi and being able to make a difference in the kids' lives. But how can you do that if you are worrying about having to pay for that $8 gallon of milk?
So, Senator LaCoy, is love enough?
Well, I mean, I've lived in Hawaii since I was 25 years old. This was my first job after graduating from the University of Washington. And I'm just someone, I doubt I will ever leave Hawaii. I mean, this is my home. I love the people here. And I've been lucky to teach at the University of Hawaii. The University of Hawaii is a great school. It has a wonderful faculty. I'm in a department, the Department of Economics, that has just really fantastic students and faculty. That's been a wonderful thing in my life. And you know, I retired from the university about 3 years ago. I'm still very active in research projects. A few weeks ago, I had a chance to go out to West Oʻahu and to make a presentation of this new book I have on Hawaiian economic history. And it was nice. It was nice being back with a group of students again. The students at University of Hawaii West Oʻahu were really enthusiastic. It was just great to present to them. And then afterwards, a lot of them came up to me and they go, "What can I do with this degree?" It did remind me the students have been saying that since I came to Hawaii too. You know, that
Well, when was the last time a new professor was hired in your department?
We've had regular hires.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Professors. We really haven't had that problem.
Let me ask though, over the course of these years, what would you say are the most important or distressing developments in our economy, or lack of developments in our economy? They put us in this place where we are.
Well, Hawaii has had a really rocky ride since I've been here. The first 10 years when I was here in the 1980s was a real time of boom and prosperity. The 1990s, we had a tremendous recession while the rest of the U.S. boomed. Japan had fallen into a deep depression, and the 1990s were really difficult years for us. There was a silver lining in that housing prices fell, and a lot of people were able to buy homes and get better access to housing over that period. But that was a really difficult period for island families. Then the 2000s, all the way through 2007, was essentially a boom period for Hawaii. We took a real hit in the Great Recession, that period 2007 to about 2010. We lost a lot of jobs, income. We've really only restored the income levels of 2007 today. So I look at the performance of the Hawaiian economy. It's been very inconsistent, and it's been difficult for people because depending upon, for example, when you graduate from school, some people have come out of school and it's been boom time and they've done really well. Other people have come out of school and they've really struggled for 4 or 5 years.
It's crazily cyclical, right?
Surprisingly cyclical.
Kamalani, we were talking earlier, and you've had a lot of jobs, right, from coming to school.
Yes.
What was it like? Were there times when there was nothing, and then there are times when there's a lot? What's it like going through this whole circular kind of thing that we have?
It was very difficult. But you just try to, focus on making it, and just try to do the best job that you can.
The jobs that you've had, I think, just give me a list. Some of the jobs you had. What did you do right out of high school first?
First job that I had was Sound Goodies.
Gone?
Gone, yeah. After that, I worked at Pizza Hut for a few years as a delivery driver. Just various jobs.
Did you feel like you were in control, or did you feel like you were always waiting for the next thing to come along that you had to grab as opposed to having a course to follow?
Yeah, you hit it on the head. It was all about opportunity, yeah. Whatever opportunity presented itself to me I jumped on it, and that was the life of course of my life.
Okay, and then Erin, how did you end up getting into small business? Did you? I mean, I know you mentioned going away to college, right?
No, I actually went to the University of Hawaiʻi.
UH.
Yeah.
Alumni.
But no, I went from actually getting a degree in education. I was a teacher. I was one of those that burnt out and quit, and was in 2008. I couldn't find a job. Applied for about 5 Starbucks, didn't get hired. Went through all kinds of job applications, federal, private, state.
You couldn't get hired?
I couldn't get hired. I got a lot of, can't do anything with the education degree except teach. So it was really tough. A lot of the jobs I looked for had real specific skill sets or business. So that's why I ended up working at the university where I was able to get my master's in business for free as part of that benefit, just so that there was that hopeful next job I could get one day. And I had, great leadership at my work that said, just do it, get an MBA even though you don't know what you're doing in the future.
Did that help? Did it open doors, or did it actually set you up so you knew what to do when it comes to starting a business?
No, in that moment, I wasn't planning on really starting a business. On the side, I had been teaching dance, and then that flourished, and I was doing really well teaching students, and was really happy doing that. But
just one-on-one kind of instruction, or was it like a class?
No, I worked with a studio, and then I was subcontracted into elementary schools to teach the arts in schools, and long journey, but basically the path of life led me through meeting somebody who turned out to be a relative who was making chocolate in his home and taught me the skill, and wanted to get to know him and have a relationship with that family, and that turned into, well, why don't you open a shop or make this a business? And I was like, I don't know how to do that.
We'll talk more a little bit later about the small business struggle, but Sumner, hearing with these folks, how these folks got to where they are today, what do we take away from that?
Well, I mean, I think Hawaii is a home melange of stories. We see tons of different stories in Hawaii. I mean, there are people who come here at very good jobs, they make good salaries, they become rich. I don't think that's the standard story of the person in Hawaii today. I think people when they come out of school, regardless of whether they have their degree or not, they really wonder, where am I going to find a job that brings me on a job ladder so that I'm progressing upwards. I'm progressing upwards in the world. And again, that's the thing I constantly hear from students and from people who've graduated 5-6 years later. I'm worried that, there's not going to be a job ladder, that there's no real place I'm going with my career. And I think Hawaii is a tough place for that. Mostly because we have a limited number of industries and a limited number of job prospects.
I'm starting to get questions already from John and Kaneohe. Comment: housing costs. It sucks that our towns are losing more and more locals who can't afford to live here anymore. Our elected officials need to make corrections, otherwise Hawaii will no longer be Hawaii. What's the plan for keeping local residents here and not moving to the mainland? Currently, there's a gap between super rich and desperately poor in Hawaii now. Sarah, you see people, you see families through your job. I mean, do you see a real drain of people leaving, people choosing to leave Kauaʻi or in your other circles?
Well, I think Aaron's a perfect example of, in our profession, that we have people who are born and raised here who, I can see you being an excellent classroom teacher, but it's such a difficult job for really what is not worth it for the pay. Even though it looks like on paper we make a decent amount, when you consider the cost of living, we're second from the bottom here in our state. That we have a teacher shortage crisis. We have 1,000 current open positions, which means that we've got about 60,000 students that are not even being taught by a qualified teacher at some point in their school day. So it's difficult to be able to tell a student, hey, you're gonna go to school, you're gonna work really hard, you're gonna go to college, and then I'm not quite sure what's gonna happen to you after. And I think our biggest export right now isn't pineapples, it's our most educated children who are moving to the mainland, and they know that they can find better opportunities. And the cost of a 1-bedroom studio apartment here in Hawaii, they can get a 5-bedroom mansion on the mainland. So why stay here?
Kamalani, what are you tempted to go to the mainland? I know you've got a daughter here you probably want to stay close to, but it must be very difficult.
Yes, actually, I've thought about moving away. I have relatives that have had to move away because of the living situation and the rising costs of living here. And I guess the thing that keeps me here is I've lived here my whole life, so this is all I know. And so there's a little bit of fear behind it, not being totally sure that I'm going to be able to survive on the mainland by myself. Whereas I have people that I can lean on over here. My family members, my aunties, my uncles, my mom, my stepdad, my sister, my brother. And yeah, if it wasn't, for these people, I wouldn't know what I'd be doing right now.
What about other friends of yours you've had friends move away?
Yes. My good friend Mark, he had to move away because he couldn't make ends meet here. My friend Christian, who was also an educator, had to move away because he just couldn't support his family. He's living on the Big Island right now, and he loves it there.
Is there a big is there inter-island movement because of the economy too, or is it primarily to the mainland?
It's primarily to the mainland. I mean, it's the job opportunities in the neighbor islands they're more narrow than they are here. It's primarily tourism in the neighbor islands now. I mean, if you went back to the 1950s, it was primarily agriculture. Neighbor islands have made the shift on over, but there's not lots of other industry employment there. There's a little bit of tech on Maui, a little bit of tech on Kauai, but not. The job opportunities are not as good in the neighbor islands as on Oahu. They're much better on Oahu.
Aaron, when you what about your experience with your friends and stuff? I mean, have you lost friends who have moved to the mainland, or?
I have had friends that go to the mainland. I have friends that are thinking about it. It's part of the discussions you have when you go out to dinners, right? It's something we all talk about all the time.
And then any friends actually go, and what are they telling you their life is like over there?
Oh, they love it. They said they found great jobs. They are able to fly home and visit. The only thing they complain about is the cost of the ticket to come visit, so they can't do it as often. But they have big homes. They've adjusted to a different life up there, and the thing they miss the most is family, but they say they come home once or twice a year, and everybody's so busy anyway that people stop and make time to see them when they come home once or twice a year.
It's even difficult, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You seem like you wanted to say something.
Well, I only want to note that if you knocked on a house in Seattle, or in San Francisco, or even Los Angeles, or San Diego, and you ask people, are you facing high housing costs? They would say, we face really high housing costs. I should note that housing prices are actually higher in Los Angeles than they are here. They're higher in San Francisco than they are here. And Seattle, Seattle's a bit behind, but Seattle, the housing prices have almost doubled in recent years. They're rapidly catching up. I mean, in many of those big cities on the West Coast, the same types of problems that we feel here, where people are saying, gee, we're really facing problems with very high housing costs.
That's what you hear all
In
about.
all
Vegas.
four of those cities, I think there's certainly better economic opportunities. They're much more diversified cities. If you have a particular type of skill, you're more likely to find that there's an industry in one of those big cities that's able to use the skill. We're here, we have a relatively narrow set of industries for people to use their skills in.
The reason why my sister lives in Seattle is because her husband is an engineer, and there was so much more opportunity than there would be here. You make twice, maybe 3 times as much. So even though the house is more expensive, they're making more money.
And also the metro areas are much bigger too. There's more choices of where you can live to match your income.
That's true. Although again, if you talk to a school teacher in San Francisco, you'd get the story of I used to be able to live in San Francisco, and about 20 years ago I had to move out. I had to move out to a suburb outside of Oakland,
and they got to
drive in for an hour and 15 minutes. Now I'm driving an hour and 45 minutes from much further away. My life is a commuting nightmare. I'm not trying to trivialize the problems people
I understand.
have here in Hawaii, but I am noting that there's a little bit of a big city problem with this in the United States. Here, we have the different thing than you have in the West Coast, where most of those cities are high housing costs and relatively high wages, where here we have relatively low wages. There's only a couple industries in which wages are above the national average, and the main industry where it's above the national average is the tourist industry.
Oh, it's above the national. Well, because it's heavily unionized.
Heavily unionized is certainly one reason.
Let me get to another question here, and this kind of goes to Kamalani's life a little bit. What can Hawaii do to reduce service jobs that are so dependent on military and tourism? Can improving public schools and the UH system create better jobs? But you're in the construction industry now.
That's correct.
What's that like? I mean, is it good for you now?
Well, I work for a local distributor, and it's all based upon the trend of everything, right? And what's being built, and
so these high rises going up are probably good for your company.
yes. When it's slow, I make a little bit more money, or actually, a little bit less money. When it's busy, I make a little bit more money.
So they send you home if the hours are short.
Yeah, if it's not busy, they won't be able to pay me.
Another question is interesting. We talk about income inequity, right? Do panelists support creating a guaranteed basic income in Hawaii to protect workers from job loss due to automation? There's like 2 questions in there. Are we losing jobs because of automation here? We don't have much manufacturing, so.
Well, I think automation is something that we're seeing everywhere. I mean, and essentially the jobs which are subject to automation are jobs in the middle of the income spectrum. Anytime you can basically look at your job, and if somebody says, could you describe that job to me? And you can start to describe the job in a certain number of steps, then that's the type of job that can be programmed, computerized, and a robot could start to do
But I mean, back to
that job. And the jobs at the bottom end of the job distribution, just by bottom end, I mean that pay the least, oftentimes those are very labor-intensive service jobs that are difficult to automate. The jobs at the upper end of the distribution, which require a lot of judgment and expertise, knowledge, are also more difficult to automate. But in the middle, there's endless jobs being automated. I think PBS really, they did a couple specials in this that were really fantastic, showing the hollowing out in the middle of the job distribution in Hawaii.
Aaron, do you employ people in your business? And so this idea of a guaranteed basic income, how do you decide how much you can pay people?
How do I decide? Well, as much as possible is always the thing at the front, like where there are people just like me with the same needs, and they know that that's our goal. We need to make more and cut costs in order to have a greater profit that we can all split and share in. And then it's by performance too, right? So I try to get everybody involved, and I know a lot of other local businesses are like this, where they give decision making and opportunities to some of their staff that really gain their trust and say, hey, together, if we can make more, we can all make more. So how are we going to do that? And people who come to the table with ideas and are willing to put the work into it reap the benefits from it. And if you want a guarantee, then usually small business is not for you, because nothing is a guarantee. You got to come in knowing that we all got to work really hard and get what was needed out there. And if nobody wants it, we don't have a job. We don't do a good job. We don't have a job. So,
You know, Kamalani, there was talk in the last legislature, they talk about a $15 minimum wage. The guaranteed basic income is not exactly minimum wage, but it would say, okay, this is how much it costs to live here. Do you feel like government should intervene in the low wage category and get people's wages up?
Yes, I do. Yes, it's a struggle to maintain, you know, a proper living in Honolulu. Again, I've been thinking about moving away because I don't make enough money to live here.
Okay, and now, you know, there's a lot of compelling stories, as we've heard right from our guests here. Many families facing a lot of struggles. Here's a story about one put together by Hikino students at Baldwin High School in Wailuku, Maui.
School, work, home, sleep, repeat.
Chaz Copa, a junior at HP Baldwin High School, is a full-time student with a part-time job at a local pizzeria, who also finds time to help at his family's bakery. He began working to repay his grandmother for the car he uses to make deliveries, but sometimes has to use his earnings to help with family expenses.
We were struggling on top of rent and stuff. My parents, they had a flat tire in the beginning, so then they needed to buy new tires, and I had $400 in cash on me that I was gonna pay my grandma with. But then I gave it to them because they needed new tires. And then the following week after, they were behind on rent and cable needed to be paid, so I ended up giving them another $800 to support that.
Along with loss of free time, taking on additional jobs takes a toll on a student's mental and physical health.
As a counselor here at Baldwin High School, I do see my students taking on the responsibilities of having outside jobs outside of school so that they can help their families to bring down costs of living here in Hawaii. You know, so some of them take the weight on of having an extra job and also the burden of their families not having money, and it plays out in different roles where they may, you know, be suffering from depression or anxiety in school.
Like he has been a little more sad in his face. His eyes are just not good. He just falls asleep right when I see him home. So I'm barely around him anymore, but sometimes he takes me out with his car and we go places.
There's been change because he's been stressed, and I mean, I've talked to him many times about it. You know, we've had our talks, and and I understand he's stressed out and everything. He has all his struggles and he deals with a lot of stuff.
Despite these struggles, Chaz remains optimistic, determined to finance his family and his future.
We all have different lives, and we all have to have that, you know, certain amount of responsibilities that we have to do. So, I mean, mine's only really differs from just my perspective and the way I see it. He's a champ. He goes through it, and he still goes to work every day. I mean, he has to go pretty soon. I mean, he's a warrior.
This is Skylar Masuda from HP Baldwin High School for Hikino.
Sarah, that sets you up for a question. You're both a teacher in middle school and you're a teacher in community college. Is that a common thing you see, where you've got kids working jobs not just for themselves but to help their families?
Definitely. That it's not enough to have 2-3 jobs as a parent to be able to support your child. Now, if that student wants to be able to help live in the house, they're going to have to work too. I have a band called the Kauaʻi Island Band. We have students from all of the different schools, and we put them together to go and travel. And not only are they working multiple jobs, and I have to be flexible and say, okay, you know what, you can miss the second half of rehearsal because I know you've got to go work at Burger King or wherever you end up working. And we have to be supportive of that as teachers, because students are struggling. Kauaʻi Community College the food bank on Kauaʻi just opened up a pantry for students because they needed access to food.
On campus.
On campus. So it's just another example of, and we have food delivered from the food bank to our school too. So families are really struggling, and ultimately if the parents are struggling, then the students are struggling, which means that the teachers have to intervene and help out, but teachers are parents too. So it's just this big cyclical thing of everyone struggling and then trying to make ends meet and hoping that it'll all work out in the end. And we just keep telling our students, work hard, go to school, make sure that you're getting good grades, and find whatever your passion is so that you can have a better life. That's what we hope for.
You know, that story was about the fatigue, the exhaustion on a kid who should be living the most exciting, fun time of his life. I mean, it must be hard for you to see that.
It was heart-wrenching. And I think what's even more sad though, is that's not new. I'm sitting here watching this as a teacher and going, I can name 12 other kids who are doing similar things. I can tell you the kid that I have to pay for, teachers spend money out of their pockets, right? Like $250, $500, half of our teachers give that much, thousands of dollars that they're putting into their classrooms. And as a teacher, if I see that the student can't go on the field trip, I'm gonna put $3 for the bus. Or I'm gonna make sure, hey, your slippers are broken. Hey, I picked up a couple extra slippers, here's some slippers. And teachers are constantly making sure that their students are okay, because we only see them from 7:45 to 2, maybe 2:45 every day. But we have no control over what happens outside of the school day. But whatever we can do to make sure that they're gonna be successful, even if it's slipping a couple granola bars because we know they can't afford to eat, we're gonna have to do.
Thank you. Erin, you were a teacher a few years ago too. What was it like for you?
Exactly how she described it. Get in as early as possible, leave as late as possible. Do what you got to do for the kids.
Look at us. You've got the blue collar lifestyle, and you see where the people are struggling. Do you see people in your world going through this kind of stuff too, especially parents?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's struggling. It's a very real thing. And we need to find a solution for this problem. It's long overdue. And I don't know what we're going to do. Maybe Sumner?
Hey, we set it up for you now, Sumner. Solve all our problems.
Right. I think one of the things that any state has to do, and this is particularly true for Hawaii, is to focus on the basics. I mean, when you look at the basics in this state, you're looking at things like our transportation network. And we've had the problem of really intense traffic. I don't mean to get away from just the human point here. We've had the problem of really intense traffic for a long time. And there are some solutions to it.
I cry in traffic all the time.
There's solutions to it. There's stuff that can be done, and we're really not doing it. But it's a really basic thing that would improve the quality of life for an awful lot of people here if we started to deal with that more seriously, and yet we're not. That's a basic thing. The school system is another really basic thing. And yet, the amount of effort that's been put forth to try to reform and improve the public schools is quite large. I mean, it's not as if people haven't tried. I mean, I think there's been enormously dedicated people, both at the Board of Education, at the individual schools, teachers, who've put in the extra mile trying to improve the public school system here. Yet it still has a ways to go. And I think that at times we get diverted by what I think turns out to be relatively manini things. I mean, smallish things that we could pay a little bit less attention to and make sure that we focus in on the basics. And things like an education drive people throughout their entire life. An educated workforce is really what made things go. And if I had to name a third basic, it's really just setting the business environment so people feel that they can start a new business and that there's some chance of being successful in that new business and that the state is not an impediment to that. I still think we're having problems really dealing with the regulatory burden that businesses face. I think that it's quite large, and that it's something we talk about all the time. We've made efforts to try to reduce it, and yet there's certain things like getting a building permit at City Hall that still continue. And I look at these three things like improving the transportation network, the schools, making sure we have a better business environment. Those all can get together. A better business environment would lead to more businesses. More business would lead to better wages. A better transportation system here would make life a lot better for people. And the education is really just the foundation of the society. Whether or not people are moving or not it's really just absolutely critical that the children of Hawaii receive a really great education. And I think we're moving in these directions, but in all three areas, just too slowly. These are long-standing problems that we're just not paying enough attention to.
Sarah, when you look at the educational system from the teacher's point of view, I mean, other than the wages for teachers, I mean, there are many, many dedicated teachers here. And so when you look at the system, though, what do you think should be better? And I'm now asking you, like, what should you be teaching, or what should the schools be teaching that they're not teaching? I got one question here from someone who says AI is going to take up 50% of the jobs are going to be involved with artificial intelligence. Do you feel like the kids you're seeing are going to be prepared for that kind of an economy, given what they're being taught?
We have no idea what type of job we're preparing our students for. What I know that myself and the vast majority of my colleagues that I work with, and through HST I've gotten to know lots of fantastic teachers throughout the state, that we are not teaching them just the basics of reading and writing. We're teaching them how to think, because we need them to be able to adjust and adapt. I think one of the things that I'm hearing with the group is that Hawaii people are resilient. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the way the economy is going to go. We're so tied to the amount of money that's coming in from tourism that you just have to be resilient and make do. And so we don't know what we're preparing our students for, but we do know we're preparing them to be thinkers, to be creative. I know myself as a band director, it doesn't matter to me that they don't ever play their instrument after they graduate from middle school or high school. Like, that's not the purpose of my subject. The subject that I teach is to teach them how to work hard. It's how to work with others, how to make sure that they can problem solve and get that instrument and make it actually sound like music.
Be disciplined.
That's what the purpose of what I teach is. It just happens to be music is the discipline. So we really hope, thank you very much, that we can just prepare them for something we don't even know.
I totally endorse the band experience. Yeah. My daughter went through it, and I don't know that she's picked up her instruments since she left, but it did her a lot of good. And my son has finished college, but he's in Mississippi. So, I mean, I'm living exactly what you guys are talking about, but we were lucky enough to be a family that could afford to send the kids away to college, and, we're just blessed. But, I could just see, are they going to come back? Are there jobs there for them? Aaron, when you look at your life, and let's talk about housing now. Okay. Now, you've got a small business, you're working hard. What's your housing situation? Can you guys afford the kind of house you'd want?
Well, yeah, my house is my business. No, just kidding. I always wanted to live over there, so I made the business there now. But
is your business really operating out of your house?
No,
oh, okay.
But we joked because in the beginning we'd be there for like 14 hours, my husband and I. So we slept on the floor, or not the floor, the bench. We had a wooden bench that we slept on.
Both you and your husband operate the business?
No, he was helping me out after his full-time job to get the business off the ground. It's a discussion we had to have together as a family, that there would be sacrifice, and it was very uncertain what would come with starting a business, and what were the personal sacrifices we were willing to make, knowing that if we made anything, it would go back into the business. How long could we do that for? So we opted to live with family.
You're living with family?
Yeah.
So, and also you've got the two children in preschool.
Yes.
How does that affect your ability to buy a house?
I don't know when we'll be able to buy a house. No. Yeah, that's the sacrifice we made. I wasn't going to have the dream home that I thought would be my own home, with my own porch and my own grass, and that kind of just
my own grass,
the fence and the things I envisioned. But we had even kids. We had to talk about it first. Are we going to have kids or not? Because kids cost this much to have, and are we going to have two? Are we going to have them close? Or are we going to try and time it so that one's in kindergarten when the other one is
and you're testing
going
the
to
face
preschool.
When you start having those conversations, right?
And I mean, these are all the kinds of real discussions we have with friends now, and the advice we share with each other, because we sacrifice for the kids to go to preschool.
Kamalani, when you looked for housing and you decided ultimately to live with your mom and your stepfather, right? But I mean, what choices do you have out there for housing? Have you looked, and what kind of choices are there out there for you?
Well, I don't make great money, so there aren't very many options for me. I've been very fortunate. I've lived with family and friends for the majority of my life, and because of my blessings, you know, I was able to have a roof over my head.
So you really haven't even shopped. You know, I just think it's like, okay, maybe you made that choice because it was $1,200 for a studio apartment or something like that, but it's basically you didn't even have any hope of finding a place you'd like to live.
That's correct. Yeah. When I did look, there was nothing. There was nothing.
Sumner, where are we with our housing situation, and what do we got to do about that?
Well, you know, it's useful to split the market into two, into houses and into condos. Okay. So if you look at houses, I mean, we're talking on Oahu. I think the last price I saw was a median price of $780. Something like that. It's gone up over 800. Gone up over 800,000. And if you look at the median family income on Oahu, okay, and you ask, could that person buy a house? They only have 70% of the income to meet the mortgage payments. Now that means they need almost another 50% more income to get up to that place. It's only the upper 1/3 that really can afford to build, purchase a home in Hawaii. And we're at a point where we're not going to build many more homes. You know, there's just basically vociferous opposition to redeveloping any of the green part of the islands in homes. So we have two big developments coming: Koa Ridge out by Waipio and Mililani, and there's another one, Ho'opili, that's out in Ewa Kapolei. Outside of those, I don't really see any more big housing developments coming here in Oahu. That means we have a pretty fixed supply of housing. We have international demand for the housing. There are people who now are able to telecommute, who are able to move here and buy the housing stock. When we start looking at affordable housing, I don't see single-family homes being affordable anytime soon. So that moves us over to condos. Okay, and if you move us over to condos, there is the potential to build up. There are endless sites, particularly along the transit-oriented development. There are endless sites, both owned by the state, the city, and by private property owners that could be developed into housing, and that could put a significant dent into the housing crisis.
You know, let me mention something to Sarah. I imagine you were here for this on Kauaʻi. We had the Kauaʻi mayor here a few shows ago, and he was very gung-ho about taking a couple of parks because they had a requirement that if you built a subdivision, you had to build a park. And he said, oh, there's places where they've got all these parks and not enough houses. He said, so I'm going to take one of those parks and I'm going to put houses on it. And it got shot down like that, you know. One of the suggestions people are making is to use school properties, you know, parts of school properties. Stanley Chang, state senator, always talks about building huge high-rises on the McKinley High School property.
The back area.
And then you'll build them a nice new school along with the high-rises. What do you think how do people respond when this kind of stuff comes in front of them? I mean, and how frustrating it is for you in your $1,300, imagine you've moved up from there, but you're where you're living.
Well, no matter how much inventory is available, how is anybody with the high cost of rent going to be able to save up a down payment to even consider it? I mean, we had a development on Kauaʻi right near the airport that was considered affordable housing, only available to local residents to be able to purchase for probably 2 years. And I think the cheapest home was something like $550,000, which is reasonable considering. But they had to end up opening up the market to anybody, and not just first home owners and et cetera, because they didn't have enough people to even buy the homes in the first place. So I think we need to consider that in the too.
You know, I think down payments are the big problem. If you actually start, again, I'm focusing on the median families. There's all these families below that can't afford. But if you look at does the family in Hawaii with the median family income, do they have enough money to service the mortgage for a condominium and pay the maintenance payments? The answer is yes. They have about 140% of what's required. More than enough money there. But then you dig a little deeper and you find, oh, they just don't have the down payment. So, you know, suppose we take let's suppose that condo is $400,000. Let's suppose a 10% down payment. The down payments typically are about 7 to 10% on a lot of these first-time home buyers moving into these condos. That a 10% down payment would be a $40,000 savings. Now, again, there's some people that are lucky enough to have parents that have money, and some of that money can be shoveled over to them, and they find that it's easy to get in. Once you're in, you're set up. You can kind of move on from there. But for the people that have difficulty accumulating down payments, that's a large number of people in the state. They have real difficulty getting access to purchasing a home. And I think this is something the state needs to look at much more closely. you know, it's not just a matter of building more, although I think part of it too is building more units in the range that are priced in the range that people want them to be in. And what that requires is building more stripped down units that are not quite as fancy, maybe don't have a pool, maybe the outside of the building isn't quite as good looking, maybe there's not a lanai, but it's a unit that's well built and that people can afford to be in. And
we got a question here that I think is interesting. Although most people oppose monster homes, isn't that a solution for the housing crisis? You know, I mean, are we overreacting to people who just want to build housing? I mean, you're in Pālolo, right? There's monster homes in Pālolo.
Yes, there are.
And when you see them, do you think, oh, they made a housing solution, or do you think that's some outside developer coming in and taking housing away from local people?
Family sticks together. That's the number one in Hawaii. You know, ohana means everything, and that's how we're able to survive. Yeah.
So people build a big house. You tend to suspect that that's a number of people from the same family all living in that big house.
I'm assuming, yes.
Mānoa, same thing, right? Some monster homes. I mean, we always hear from people in Mānoa about monster homes. So, what do you think? I mean, do you think that, I mean, in the neighborhood you're living in, would you be okay if all of a sudden a lot more of the properties got a little more dense?
I think the only concern is I look at that as same as you, Kamalani, like people are trying to figure out what they can do, how can they share their resources, how can family, I mean, I'm blessed the same way. I have family that has supported us. So I don't really look at that. It's not to me, categorized as a monster home issue. It's more a respect issue on who's living in the house and how are you treating your neighbors, whether you're in a monster house or in a single family house or in a condominium. It's about how you interact with people outside of your home, and when you're in your home and respecting people and the noise you make or the things that you do, that's what matters more, in my perspective, than the size of the house or the number of people in there.
Luckily, people are working 2-3 jobs, so they're never home anyway.
Right. Well, this is Shirley, a 20-year school teacher from Kapolei. When will it get better so teachers can afford a home or not have to work 2 or 3 jobs? But let me turn this question a little bit, again, back to this idea of housing at schools. I mean, do you think that would help if the schools started providing housing for teachers?
There's definitely potential for that to be an assistance to teachers. I see that more of an assistance to teachers who are first coming into the profession. That's the real big struggle. But once you have a family and you have kids and other responsibilities, we already spend more time at school than what is contractually what we're supposed to do. And I could see it being difficult. I mean, I don't even live in my house practically. I'm always in the band room, and everybody knows what my car looks like, so that they text me, "Why are you at school still?" kind of thing, because we just do what we can for the students. And I could see teachers wanting to live on campus, but I think a lot more teachers would rather just be able to comfortably afford to be able to have a nice place to live in.
Let me throw this out as an interesting question. Incorporate trades into high school curriculum so the students can provide for themselves upon graduating. What do all of you folks think about that? Because at the same time, we are always hearing, oh, you got to get that college degree, you got to, that's the path to success, when maybe we should capitulate to this economy, that it's construction and tourism, and let's prepare them for that. Sumner, what do you think?
Well, I think there should be a wide variety of opportunities that kids can choose from. I mean, I think trying to push kids down particular tracks isn't necessarily right. It's useful to think that we do need electricians and plumbers and people in the construction industry. I mean, that even today, though, that can still sometimes require a community college degree. A lot of the community colleges in Hawaii do offer more vocational things. I think the number one thing we have to do as educators is to offer a variety of opportunities to students so that they can do what they're interested in. If they do what they're interested in, they're going to learn. They're going to, and it's not just enough to learn, though. They also have to pick up a variety of skills. And being able to pick up a variety of skills gives you confidence that you can pick up more skills in the future. And the one thing that we know about this economy and this society is that the skills you learn today won't necessarily be the skills you need tomorrow. That you're gonna have to move on. If you learn a computer language today, the one that your job will probably need is something else. And that what you need to do is be able to learn how to learn computer languages. Or you could really put that off in almost every other thing that's being done. People need to do what they're interested in, and yet also be able to pick up some skills that are useful out there.
Let me throw out another
concept.
concept.
It's a rough ride for a lot of kids.
Let me throw out a concept that we've got quite a few calls. We're getting a lot of calls. Thanks, folks. It's really good. Governing bodies and councils are only looking out for themselves and developers. They make rules and laws that they profit from. Opening a small business is not worth it. The 30% tax should be exempt for 3 years. I don't know what the 30% tax is, but building off the grid in Big Island is the only affordable place you could do that. The issue is not low wages. The issue is high taxes. How much is our government a problem? I mean, let me ask you, how much, do you pay a lot in taxes?
I do.
And we pay 4% on everything we buy. So folks who have low incomes are paying more taxes on the dollar than people with higher incomes, right? So, you know, what do you guys think? Is the government in your way, or if they got out of the way, or do you think government is the answer to these things? I would ask Aaron and Sarah this first, and then I'll let Sumner go. Aaron, what do you think? You, as a small business person, did you feel like you had to go through an awful lot to get your business going, and way more than you should have?
I feel like it does take a lot, but I don't feel like my story is that unique, because whether you're starting a business or you're a teacher or you're jumping jobs, like everybody is kind of going through the same thing where we're like, what's it gonna take? Oh, that's the name of the show. And I was like, but
there's the promo.
Yeah, that's the promo. It really is a, what is it gonna take? And I don't think I stopped to, you don't have the time to stop and point fingers because it doesn't really do anything. So I'm kind of just here to be part of the solution too. Like,
but you probably needed, you're selling food, right? So you needed to go through the health department. You're in a semi-commercial district, right? So you had to go through the building department. You've got your cooking.
Yeah.
So you've got all that kind of equipment and stuff. I mean, that must have been incredible red tape.
Oh, it's tremendously difficult, especially when you walk into it with passion to do a mission and not go in thinking or having that mentorship or asking for that mentorship prior. So you're figuring it out along the way, and I think that's why going through it is what gives me kind of that inspiration to keep going, because I see how hard it is, and I want to also help pave the way for other people to be able to do it, because, oh man.
So what was the one hardest thing? Like if you could have a magic wand and get rid of one thing about the difficulty in starting a business, what would it be? Do you fill out your own tax forms?
I think the hardest thing is working with the emotions of people who are dealing with real problems of hunger or finding a job or figuring themselves out or figuring out who they are as a person, how to, just even have confidence in themselves sometimes. I think that's the greatest struggle. Everything else we can kind of figure out. There's resources and you can ask, but when somebody has a personal story in front of you, I don't know what to do a lot of the time except say I'm here to try and support you.
Sarah, what do you think? Do you think that the government in Hawaii is the answer, or is it the problem?
Well, the thing is this, I work for the government.
I know.
So the taxes that people pay for my salary, they pay for the books, they pay for the building, they pay for the electricity, and I can really confidently say we don't have enough in schools. I mean, anybody that thinks that the school budget is huge, which it is huge, we take up majority of the state's annual budget. But just walk around a school for a day. Ask the special education teacher if they have enough parapros in their classroom. Ask the teacher how many books that the kids had to share that day. Ask if the bathrooms work and if there's toilet paper in them. Sometimes these are real things that we need tax dollars for. I don't know where those tax dollars are going to come from. Hopefully there's some magic tree somewhere that we can get them off of. But I'm so torn because I know that taxes pay for what we need, and if education is going to be that great equalizer that we can provide our students and provide them the skills that they need, we really need to find the money to be able to do so. It shouldn't just be that the schools in the rich and affluent areas have the best opportunities and the schools that are the most supported. We should be supporting every school, every student throughout our entire state, and that's going to take money.
Very well said. Okay, Kamalani, I'm gonna let you start with this question. You have hope? Are you excited about the future, or are you worried about the future?
I have to be hopeful, and I have to hope for change. And like Erin was saying, I firmly believe that it's going to take the future generations to solve our problems.
Sumner, I said I would let you answer these questions, but you've only got about 30 seconds. So tell me the one thing, the magic wand thing that you would do. One thing, magic wand thing.
Dealing with government.
No, or anything to fix this.
Well, I think we do need to solve the housing crisis. That's right up there at the top of the agenda. You know, if you look at how expensive Hawaii is compared to other cities in the mainland, when you look at the index, we're about 20% more expensive. This is Honolulu, not all of Hawaii. We're about 20% more expensive than your average mainland city. That's not San Francisco. It's probably dealing more with like Lincoln, Nebraska or something, an average U.S. city. 20% more expensive. And if you look at all other goods except housing, we're only about 7 to 10% more expensive.
Thank you.
Uh-oh.
I'm done.
Thank you.
No, good job. So I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight from home, and we want to thank our guests, Erin Kanawihara, owner of, I knew I was going to blow this, it's Chocolea, because it's not spelled right up there, at Manoa Valley. Sumner LaCroix, economics professor at the University of Hawaiʻi, Manoa. Sarah Tochiki, band director at Chiefess Kamakahelei Middle School in Līhuʻe, Kauaʻi. And Sean Kamalani Raposa, a warehouse worker and self-described people person. Next week on another special edition of Insights, we continue our series, What's It Gonna Take?, with a look at the health of Hawaii's people. We hope you join us then. I'm Daryl Huff for Insights on PBS Hawaii. A hui hou.